On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
Knowing what you're capable of. I mean, I think, we would get asked, I was 3 years into it, I think. And one of the guys in my power group, he's like, what are you working on? I said, oh, I'm quoting a Sam's Club, giant, painting in Sam's Club. He's like, what are you doing? This hit me hard too. He said, can you afford to do the job and not get paid? No. He goes, okay, then stop doing it. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's kind of one of those contracting things. Like you run the risk of not getting paid sometimes. And, your risk is that. So can you afford it?
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in. What's up, everybody? Chaz Wolfe. I'm back, Gathering the Kings podcast. Today, I've got Scott Specker here on the King stage. My brother, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm always wonderful, though. We were just talking about how sometimes things aren't wonderful, but that's okay. We still got to show up anyway. So my answer is always I'm wonderful. But the reality is that we got businesses, man. We got families. We got stuff.
Yes.
That's what we're going to talk about here today. So Scott, tell us what kind of business that you got, brother.
So I own a commercial and residential painting company in North Atlanta. We are franchised. 5-Star Painting is a part of the Neighborly Group. I also own a commercial real estate company that started last year. We bought 2 office suites, one that 5-Star rents out, and I have another renter right next door. And we're looking at doing a few other things.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, so a man of many endeavors, and I'm sure many of other things as well, but we'll get into some of that. I want to know before we get started, Scott, you've been successful, man. Like you got multiple deals, you got things going on. You're in Atlanta, which is a crazy growing market. You've been successful. Why are you still pushing? Why are you at the office today? What do you still have yet to achieve? What's your why, man?
What is success? I mean, what does that mean when someone calls me successful? I mean, I remember 10 years ago when I started this, there was so much fear and doubt, and I still have some of that today, but sure. One of my friends said, it's really about the journey, constantly raising the stakes, going to the next level. We are successful. I do have a lot more freedom, which is what I looked for when I left the corporate world. So I spent 16 years in the corporate world and really didn't have any control of my calendar. My client would say, hey, let's have a meeting at 5:00. And, it's downtown Atlanta. And okay, see you then. And I'll call my wife. All right, see you at 8:00,
Yep,
so
that's right.
To me, like, what's that worth? And I'm successful, I think, because I don't have to take those meetings now. I kind of have control of my calendar. So that was a big part of me. I think about success and why I'm here. I guess it's finding the freedom and providing an environment here for my people to really grow and flourish into their best self. I think we did a massive change last year of the people that work for us. And we've got some really wonderful people working for us.
That's cool. Yeah, there's a shift, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more here, but there's a shift at some point. We call it the warrior to king stage shift, from selfish ambition to then, man, there's just so much in me that I got to give, right? And community, obviously your team, your family, all that. And so you buying back your time and then now helping your team kind of do the same thing and become their best self. Like all of that is a process of you maturing into who you're designed to be. Was that like a moment that you had this realization that like, oh, it's bigger than me? Or was it a gradual course of time where you just got good people on your team and you're like, oh man, I really want to serve them? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think some of the mentors, both at within 5-Star that I've worked with, some of the guys that we have our own little, king group, if you will. We don't call ourselves that. Just a power group that push each other, and just some of the other people in the community I've connected with that have, a few statements that have kind of punched me in the gut. My company will only grow as much as I grow. That was right. Ooh, that means I got to get reading, got to get exercising, got to stay fresh because I can't be the same person. A buddy of mine in Rotary said to me, you're going to be the same person based on who you hang out with and the books you read. So I started reading a lot. I started hanging out with maybe different people, sort of work people, if you will, or people from the chamber of commerce and stuff like that, in a day, I probably wouldn't have looked their way, but now, they're people I want to hang out with because they're excited about our growth, they're excited about our company and about me as I guess a grown adult, right? So we move out of this phase of like, hey, I'm just trying to, prove myself to now all of a sudden, how do I give back to my community? That's one of the reasons why I did this as well, is I felt like, this great corporate job, great income, great benefits, but I didn't know anyone in my community. I knew my friends and my neighbors, but do I know who runs 3 different nonprofits in the area? Do I know who runs the hospital? Do I walk into a restaurant or an area and people know me because of what I either give back to the community or relationships I have? The answer was no. I knew people in Chicago. I knew people where I would travel, but it was like, okay, I live here. My kids go to school here. We're so ingrained in the community. I'm deep into my church here. I want to be known here. I want to be sort of a man of respect. And, that was one of the things we did with the business early on, was to give back. We didn't have a lot of money to give back. So we gave a lot of time back, and we started to commit our company to, okay, each year we're going to give money back and give time back and actually do community projects where we would repaint, a nonprofit's office or a shelter for boys and girls in the area that are homeless, for free, because it just felt the right thing to do. It felt like it was our calling. And it gave us purpose. It was like, hey, yeah, we're coming to work to get a check and all that. We get that. But also, hey, you look back and say, you know what, 10 years ago, yeah, we repainted that building for free, and we did that for free for that group. And, that impacted people's lives. So that it just gave us meaning and it gives us purpose. So, I look for new ways to do that. We partnered up with people down in Alpharetta too, that, then you find these companies too, that they have a whole purpose of, hey, we're going to renovate people's bedrooms and bathrooms that have special needs kids at home. We're going to do it for free. If you want to paint it for us, heck yeah, let's go. They're like, yeah, we can't find a painter that'll do that. I mean, it's just, you find these people that are just unbelievable. And then of course you meet the contractors that do that work. And those are the people that match your values, that you want to be, in business with. So
there's a mentality there that you start running with people that are also willing to give. And you're like-minded at that point, or you're valued. You have the same values, you share the same mindset, really. And that just spurs on, like you said, with your little power group, or whether it's, inside of a conglomerate of businesses coming together to serve a specific, person or family or group. There is power in that, because even if you just met them, you already know that you're the same, person. It's just a different story, different road. And there's a mutual respect there. And then a leveling up, right. Even if you don't even really know them super well, you step into the room and you realize that you're like, okay, I got some work to do still.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny because I first went to my Rotary, but it was 9 years ago. Someone said, you got to go to Rotary. I said, okay. So I walk into Rotary, and it's all service above self. It's an amazing organization. I walk in, and it's all established, and I'll call them gray-haired white dudes, right? And I kind of look around, and I'm like, I need leads, I need jobs. And they were all like, oh yeah, we're going to go volunteer here and clean up the highway here. And I'm like, I'm out. I got to get jobs. So I went and joined BNI for 3 years and cut my teeth in that. And then I came back to Rotary when I could kind of hold my own. I got painters who can help here and do that, because I just couldn't. It just freaked me out, and I really feel like I had to get my game on to be like, all right, I'm coming in here with something, because I didn't feel like I was really adding anything. And now, I love my Rotary. My attendance has been bad the last couple of weeks, but it's just I'm so proud of it. It's so much fun. I invite people all the time, and they're just doing great things.
Yeah, it's cool that you gave that distinction. I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later. One of my speed round questions is around networking and masterminding, how those things are different. Sure. And you just gave a very direct answer on what the difference is. And usually people who are in the very warrior building, probably not at the $1 million mark or above, they're thinking leads, jobs, today's satisfaction, money, which is okay. You got to go through that.
Yep.
But I'll tell you what, the satisfaction, and also the deals, the jobs, the money that come from the relationships. That's not why you're there, but the relationships in that room, I'm sure, have dwarfed what the BNI did for you, just because simply it's relationships, and you're not showing up to count your referrals and how many points you got. Not that that's bad. Over here, it's real deal. We're going to do business together for the next 20 years. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and it led to other volunteer type groups. So they have a leadership group that I got invited to because I was in Rotary. I got asked to be on a nonprofit because of Rotary. People saw me there, got to know me. And my friend Derek always says it's relationships first, and then the business kind of comes after. And you don't even have to ask for it. It just kind of comes because you're in a relationship with someone that is meaningful.
Yeah, you're doing the right stuff. All right, well, let's go a little practical here. I want to hear your story, and then I want to get into some decision making. Tell us how you started. You said you were in corporate America and you left. You've obviously been in business now. You said 10, 11 years. How did that transition go for you? Tell us the story.
Yeah, so I reached a breaking point in my corporate career where I was completely miserable. I was a director of market research, or director of client services for a large market research company called the Nielsen Company. Everyone's heard of them. Moved us here to Atlanta, was moved to 3 different cities, moved to Atlanta to call on Georgia Pacific to negotiate a big deal, which I did successfully. Then they said, great, you can now call on Coca-Cola. So, huge deal, calling on, the world's largest marketer here in Atlanta. So at first it was, okay, you're going to be on the global side. So traveled the world, which was fantastic, 9 continents and, or 9 countries, and helped initiate, made great friends, just fantastic experience on the international world. And then it kind of, after that, it was, okay, now you got to go to Canada for 2 years, and now you got to kind of manage that. And I was good at what I did. And I had to kind of teach, like, okay, we got to teach about service, and we had a monopoly up there. So I had to teach them sort of how to, respond quicker and stuff to the relationships. Did a great job there. Then it was, all right, now you're back in the US, and all this really wasn't like major promotions or, hey, here's 100,000 in stock options or anything like that. It was just, here's your next thing. So now you got to call on downtown, and, you have to be downtown 5 days a week. And I live 40 miles north, and that got really old. And it was kind of spiraling down, where I was still performing. I had, good reviews, but I was like, this can't continue. The next level up looked kind of worse. I was a director, that was a VP, that almost looked worse. So the entrepreneurship bug has always been in me. It was just a matter of when I could kind of pour the water on it to get it to grow out. So my dad started it probably. When I was in college, he left his corporate job. He saw the writing on the wall. He got bought. He worked for Westwood up in Buffalo, got bought by Bristol Myers Squibb. They had 18 guys back in New Jersey that did what he did in Buffalo, as one guy. So he's like, I got to get out of here. So he started his own thing in the early 90s, 91, 92 maybe.
Okay.
Great. And he did. So I kind of watched that going, okay.
You get to see it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That sort of set it. And then while in college, I wrote my own business plan to start my own business, which was a high risk business. It was an indoor rock climbing, but I came out of college, didn't have any money. I probably needed $40,000, $50,000 and a lot of insurance to do that. Didn't have that kind of money at all. So I was like, all right, I'll go into this Nielsen world, and I love marketing. I love market research. So started that, which started my career there and led me down to Atlanta. But then I was like, okay, I don't like the next level. How do I get out? So I started writing business plans, started coming up with creative ideas of starting my own business while working for someone else. So in the evenings and the weekends, I'm writing, I'm research. And I came up with 4 great ideas that I thought were great, but my wife hated every one of them. And he's kind of important.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you said that, because some guys like me at some points didn't think that they weren't important. We just, kind of skipped over that one,
Yeah. So, and then I met with a franchise coach who sells franchises to miserable corporate guys. And he had the exact same thing she said. He goes, well, those are partnerships, they're retail, they're high risk. Your wife's not on board. He goes, if there were 10 things you shouldn't do, you had like 9. So it was like, oh, okay, now what am I going to do? I was 40 years old, got 3 beautiful boys at home, beautiful wife. Okay, what am I going to do? So he said, basically, you need to look at a franchise. And the one question he said too is, how long can you go without making $1? Said, oh, okay. Guess I need a franchise, because you can quickly, start making money in a proven system. So he started showing me different franchises again while I was working, so it was like in the evenings, and I'm having these calls, and I had some ideas too of some different franchises, because actually a guy left Coke that started a mobile drug testing company, or bought the franchise, I believe, which I thought was great. But what that really meant is that you were picking up urine from truck drivers at 2 a.m. I don't think that's me.
We peel back the details here. No,
not me. Then convincing someone else to go do that. Right. Here's your job. Yeah. You're going to, yeah. So no, that didn't work. Indoor rock climbing, or I wanted a soccer store, and also probably be lacrosse. So I was talking about that with a friend of mine, a technology sort of app company that was would be a lot of fun, but probably not make any money. So the franchise guy said, hey, let's do a personality Briggs-Meyer thing. Are you more sales, marketing, operations type guy? Came back, I kind of screamed sales and marketing, and he started presenting me opportunities. One of those was the mobile drug testing thing. One was staffing. He thought it would be good owning a staffing, like an express employment type thing. And then 5-star rose up because I wanted new too. I wanted home-based. He actually did a great thing, and I would encourage any entrepreneur to do this. Actually, I encourage my boys to do this. Write down what you don't want in your next thing, right? Then that really crafts out what you want it to be. So I didn't want to travel. I didn't want an office. To start, I wasn't looking at employees. I didn't really want a team to start. Eventually, now I'm quite the opposite. I want, as many awesome people as possible. But it just fit. It was sort of transactional too. Like I was managing a very long relationship between Nielsen and Coca-Cola, which is like a 78-year relationship. Like how much am I going to impact that? What am I going to leave on that? Really not much. That relationship's going to be there forever. It'll go up and down. But so I wanted something like, all right, you like painting, right? So you do this and I'll pay you this and then we're done and we shake hands and everybody's happy. Great. That sounds great. Like I need it a little more transactional, but also, creating some sort of long-term relationship. Yeah. So I'm just going on, but I mean, the franchise coach really coached me through, okay, he had these calls, they're called exploratory calls. They're kind of highly regulated. You can only have them like once a week. So you go through that. And at one point it narrowed down just to the staffing and the painting. And a pivotal moment was when the staffing lady called me, and she was wonderful. And we connected on values as well. We were praying sort of together on this, and because it's a big decision. I got a mortgage, I got a family. I can't, this has to be the right thing. And she called me and she said, I just want to apologize. The territory we were offering you just got bought by another franchise owner in another city in the area. And he had to pay back some debts. I didn't know they were doing this. And I'm just so sorry. And we prayed together, and I'll never forget it. I was in probably the 15th story and I was hiding in an office in Coca-Cola talking to her. And I'm praying and bawling and just, I got tears. My wife's on the phone and she's like, I'm so sorry. And she said, God, please give Scott direction as to where to go. So went home. Again, we prayed on it. And then I just woke up the next morning. I said, you know what? If it were the painting thing, I probably would have been destroyed because I was really excited about it. I didn't have any experience in painting, by the way. So my wife looked at me like I was insane. She's like, okay, you were presenting to VPs at Coca-Cola on strategy, and now you're going to be painting. Right. You got to, you really have to give her a lot of credit for this, for having the faith that okay, you can do this. And because it was totally complete left turn from what I was doing. So we kind of went down that route. I said, let's go meet those guys. And we met them. It was the creators of it, the founders, and they were young and high risk and kind of risk takers and really sharp guys that came out of, one of them had an MBA out of what's the school in Utah, but they were fantastic. So I really connected with them, and that started the journey.
That's awesome. I think that, everything that you've shared is just so relatable whether the listener had a corporate job or not. My story specifically relates to that. I was 24 years old and already for 2 years going, I can't do this. I already know I need something different. And looking at other options, and franchising obviously was a very similar, solution for me at that time, knowing that I had a mortgage and a great income that I was leaving and all that stuff. And so really what I heard you say though, is that you needed to have something, a different vehicle that maybe right away was different, completely different, but that eventually could grow into what you said earlier, which was freedom. And maybe it was through painting, but now it's through team building. It's the same company, but it's a different process that you personally go through every single day. It's still freedom that you're after. And I think that more than anything is what the listener is like, oh yeah, I want freedom. That's why they started their business. That's why they left their corporate job. That's why whatever their story is, it's because we want freedom. We want time freedom. We want family freedom. We want financial freedom. Like, what do these things look like for us? And so I just appreciate you sharing that. I want to go into like maybe that first year, 2, 3 of business. I want you to tell me a good decision that you made that you can look back on and go, I'm so glad I did that.
There's a couple that are pivotal. I remember, working I'll say 2, and I'll say them now so I don't forget them. One is reaching back out to the franchise consultant that recommended this craziness and saying help, because we were 6 months in and wanting to die. Wow. And then I would say the second is hiring great people. So I'll go into each of those. So the 5th month in, we hit, and I had 6 months. So I negotiated a 6 months salary health benefits. So we got 6 months to quickly replace so I don't get kicked out of my house, right? So it's like, we've got to hustle. And I'm talking 80 hours a week. You know, we didn't take vacations for 2 years. We did nothing but work. And my wife, I was the first salesperson and my wife was the first project manager. And we both, you know, were just fighting because I would quote something wrong. She'd have a painter yelling at her and she's like crying to me, I just want to go home. I hate this. You know, this is terrible. So just stressed, exhausted. Yeah. So we met back up with our guy and said, hey, he's like, how's it going? And we both started getting teary. And she's like, I don't want to do this. I didn't sign up for this. You know, this is too difficult. And he said, okay. And we kind of told him where we were. Like financially, we were there. I mean, we were there in terms of what we needed to replace. But he's like, wait a minute, you guys are treating this like a sprint. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. This is a long-term deal. And that made us kind of go, and it was him actually recognizing us, saying, you guys are successful. You're doing it. You're doing great. We didn't think we were because we were working so much. So getting that outside perspective, realizing it's a long-term gain was huge. He did tell us, and then I guess that actually did lead to the people, because right after that, you got to replace your wife. So get someone else in the field to chase down, you know, all the Mrs. Joneses and the painters and the people that we needed to do business with. So I replaced her with a great first hire. And I'll never forget it because I got sick the next month because I was working so much, right? So I'm exhausted. I'm on my couch and we worked out of the house at the time. And I remember being like on the couch and like laying there. And I had a project manager come into the house. You know, everybody used to come to the house too. So that was a mistake because it brought work into home. So now all the pressure and tension is there.
It's all there.
It's all there. It's like, great. Oh, good. We never leave. We never stop working. Great. So I was on the couch and I was like just deaf. And I look up and my first sales guy, literally, he was handing the job folder. Hey, I just sold this job to my project manager. And I was like, I don't even need to be involved. Like, oh my God, this could actually work. Like I could see this working without me touching it. No, okay, what's the details of the job? You know, when's it starting? Who's the color? What's the colors? All this, blah, blah, blah. They just handled it. And I literally just kind of laid back like, okay, thank you, God. I think this could actually work. And I got better a few days later, but yeah, I worked myself to and which I'm sure a lot of people did too when they first start, because you're in like, I got to make money. I have to go. And that leads to bad decisions too, though. So I would caution people, you can hire the wrong people. You can hire out of desperation.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The moment, I mean, obviously hiring good people and the outside perspective, both are incredible. I want to touch on them briefly, but the one thing that you said that I want to make sure the listener hears is that there is a moment, sometimes, usually actually, it's a forced moment that removes you. It removes your human frame from the equation. Maybe not your mind, because maybe you can get on a phone call or you can look up from the couch, deathly ill, and go, like 2 cents, but there is that moment. And I can think of the one for me when I opened up a business outside of the city that I lived in. It was my 4th franchise at the time. And I did it very naively, but what it forced my brain to do is what exactly happened in your brain was, wow, what if I'm not in the equation? What if I physically cannot be there? How do I do this? Or who do I need in place to make this happen? And so I think both of those very forced situations, the listener is listening right now. They've either had this situation and they go right back to how they're doing it, or they haven't had that situation where they've had to, like, kind of external circumstances have removed them from situations. So I would suggest to them that they just leave. Don't leave. Yep. Don't actually do that. I'm kidding. But in all seriousness, organize or facilitate a situation where you are not there and stress test, because that's how you figure out the points of contention that really you're handling that you really need to give to somebody else to begin with. And so for you at that moment, sales guy, project manager, it was happening right in front of you, and it was just like this light bulb moment for you. That needs to happen to every listener right now. If they've already had it though, and they went back to being in the mix, like slap on the wrist and like freaking let's go. We got to get the right people hired. The outside perspective, whether it's a coach or your consultant, or like you had mentioned earlier, a power group or something like that, that is just huge. I love that opportunity. And then hiring, you said maybe it doesn't go right. What happens if you hire somebody and it didn't go perfect the first time? What do you do then?
Yeah, you look at what you hired and where it went wrong. And, early on, you've got to be self-reflective as an entrepreneur, because a lot of it, I'll be like, why did they do that? Oh, it's because I trained them that way, or I didn't train them how to do that. Like they literally 4 fingers back at me. I'm like, okay, I'm such an idiot. Yeah, I'm to blame on that. So, you stress people out, you're working too hard, you don't give them clear direction. A lot of it, I mean, a lot of the bad hires are probably bad management but some of the hires definitely were just out of desperation. And, we didn't just hire the right people. So it's probably 50-50.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's flip the coin, since we've kind of already parlayed into a little bit of a bad choice with bad hires. But what would have been that bad choice that you made maybe early on that you can tell us about that we can learn from?
I would say staying on track, on focus. So we paint people's homes and businesses. Other opportunities come up where, it's off track. It's a little bit different. Oh, you're going to do a sign for McDonald's, or you're going to, so there's a lot of different opportunities that come your way. And you've got to stay focused on what you're good at, because you can get sidetracked, and the serial entrepreneur in you can keep coming out. Okay, yes, I started this, but now I'm over here, right? A little bit of the squirrel ADD thing, but you've got to stay focused and keep people on track. I would say that was definitely a mistake that we made. I think just not being clear with people. We got a PO involved pretty early to get clear job descriptions, clear compensation. I mean, money is always like the, huge thing that you want to make sure you're clear with people on, promises you make. So getting that in writing, getting them to agree to it, and getting that signed off before someone starts is huge. But
yeah, those are what we would say maybe or think of as simple things, but so profound for later down the road type trajectory. Like if you get off just a little bit with that project that doesn't line up exactly, but it's just a little bit over here, but then the next one that's a little bit, it's just a little bit further and a little bit further.
Yeah. And knowing what you're capable of. I mean, I think, we would get asked, I was 3 years into it, I think. And one of the guys in my power group, he's like, what are you working on? I said, oh, I'm quoting a Sam's Club, giant, painting in Sam's Club. He's like, what are you doing? And this hit me hard too. He's like, okay. He said, can you afford to do the job and not get paid? No. He goes, okay, then stop doing it. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's kind of one of those contracting things. Like you run the risk of not getting paid sometimes. And, your risk is that. So can you afford it? And I was like, no, I can't. So, and I stopped working on it because it was over my skis at the time. Now we've done 5 Walmarts now, so we can handle it now, but I'm 10 years in. So I try to tell people as well, because they send stuff all the time. People asking me, hey, should I do this? And I just, no. If you're even asking, then no.
Yeah, you kind of already know the answer. That getting over the skis thing, I think every entrepreneur, they heard you, but they didn't really hear you. What would you say to the person listening right now who is like, I would have done that, Sam's? Like what you're wrestling with that guy who's maybe in disagreement with you. What would you say to that guy?
It's calculated risk. I mean, you would have lost. I mean, if you're flush with cash and you can not get paid, if you could say, yeah, it's a $95,000 job, and if I don't get paid, I'm still fine, then sure, go ahead and do it. But if you have to ask tons of questions, if you don't know the quantities that are going to be needed, the specialty paint, that glaring, beautiful, like green and blue thing or gray thing that's on the Walmart, that's a specialty paint. It's a 2-part epoxy. Like, are you aware of that? Do you know how to do tuck pointing to cover in all the cracks on the side of it? You don't even know what that means. Stop. You're over your skis. But we try to find stuff that is just like what we do now. It's just maybe bigger. So, and I've learned, I've gone south on jobs. I push jobs too. So, I told the story the other day where we had a job. It was the winter. We were just a couple of years in, and it's a big lake house, and we're near Lake Lanier, and the customer was great, but we couldn't paint. It was cold. We couldn't paint till 10 o'clock. We got done at 4 o'clock. And what we didn't know is that in the evening, because we're like, oh yeah, it's about 50 degrees. Yeah, we can paint. It got below freezing, and the whole house cracked. All the paint cracked that evening. Come back the next morning, and he's like, what are you going to do? I look at the painter. I guess we're going to repaint it. So, I had to scrape it all off. And it's a mistake you make once. And we were just pushing it because we had to get revenue and we had to, pay our bills. So I think the correlation, or maybe the center point to all of that this topic that we're talking about, you said it already, which is desperation. And it's so difficult, especially early on, because, I mean, let's just be honest, like you're in grind mode, like we just talked about. And so you are trying to, cover the mortgage. You are trying to cover food on the table. Like it's difficult to separate
need from desperation. I've taught this in sales for many years. Even if someone doesn't even own a business, they're just a salesperson. You have to so desire to get the deal, but absolutely not need it. And it's like, there's this huge conundrum in your mindset as a salesperson or as an entrepreneur where you're like, I will do anything to get this deal, but I do not need it. I have to be able to walk away.
Oh, and that takes faith. And we named our company after, our ability to have faith. So we actually call it 5-4 faith. So the 5 Speckers to have faith to do this and to realize that, yes, this golden opportunity, this golden edge right in front of you, if it goes away, you know what, there's another one right behind it. And I'm so glad we're talking about this, because literally an hour before this call, I got a call that we lost the biggest contract that in the company's history. And nothing at our fault. It's just a new general manager came in. It was for a big apartment complex downtown, something we don't really do either. So it's like new construction, new commercial construction, spraying apartments. We don't, our guys can do it, but our pricing model is not set up for that. So he just called me and I said, hey, what's going on? I haven't heard from him. The drywallers were there. We were supposed to start painting in the next week or two, but I haven't heard from him. So I knew something was up. And he said, oh, we got a new GM. He fired everybody. He brought in his own guys. I'm embarrassed to tell you, but he hired his own painter who's actually charging us more than what you were going to charge.
Wow.
So, and that was going to get us, quite comfortably through the winter. But so now, but
not anymore.
The point of the story, well, the good part of this, because I'm sitting here going, because he's like, do you want to do the outside still? And I said, give me 24 hours, because I'm a little bit of a thinker. So I'm like, I haven't even told, the team this yet. So I have my whole team coming at 1:00. But literally, he tells me that. I sit down here, I was getting ready for you, and I get an email from my sales manager who's on vacation. And he's like, hey, we just won the hospital job. So there's a hospital right around the corner from here. We know, 10 people that work there. My father-in-law died there. My employees have kids. We got a real connection to this hospital. My Rotary meets there. We just got a contract with them to do something. So it's like, God takes away, God gives.
That's right. Yeah, I love how fresh it is. Like, I don't know if the listeners caught that, but you haven't even told your team this, right? And obviously this recording is going to come out weeks later. Your team's going to already know, but right now in this moment, live while we're recording, your team doesn't know it, and you shared it with me, obviously, but with the listeners, it's like, this is what it means right here. To manage emotion, to manage contracts, to manage people, to manage the up and downs, expectation, faith, like everything that you just said, even the scripture that you just referenced, the he gives and takes away. It's like there's this very stark reality of things can change like this in business, and we do our darndest, right, to put good people in place and to have written agreements and to build good relationships. But the reality of it is that things change. Right before we hit the recording button, I told you that some of my real estate companies are pinched right now because the Feds decided to raise rates, not just once, not just twice, but however many times. And it's like scratching my head going, I don't know how to get funds out of those deals right now. Okay, so what do we do? What do we do? And this is the reality. It doesn't matter if you're at 500,000 or if you're at 500 million. These are the decisions that entrepreneurs make. So I just so appreciate you sharing that, man. That's just like really raw, vulnerable. I don't know if the listener caught how real that is, but this is like, you're thinking about this right now.
Right now. Yeah, I gotta, and to your point, I mean, as a leader, they feed off of my emotions. So I've got to be, it's okay, we're going to move on. And my wife, what's funny too, is the journey that my wife is taking, because she's not the risk taker. I'm the risk taker.
Right.
And when stuff like this happens now, it rolls off her like it's nothing. It used to panic her.
Oh, yeah.
And, I was always like, it'll be all right. And now we've kind of role reversed in a way where she's like, it's fine, honey, we're good. Don't worry. God's got it. Something else will come in. And sure enough, I just get that email, from my manager who's in Europe, by the way. He's like, hey, I just got an email from the hospital. We won the hospital job.
Yeah.
He knows no idea that we lost the $350,000 job that,
right.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's a big deal, man. And I love what you said about your wife. My wife is the same way. There's a lot of times where I didn't share because of that. Right.
Yes.
But now, but now, like you said, it's like a lot of times there's a strength there because you've just been through the battle together so many times, which is, again, it goes back to whether it's the spouse, whether it's the power group, whatever, it's those people that are around you that it's in these moments, like right now. I even like to think of maybe like this moment, I get to be that person for you because we get to talk about it, like you got to go like, unload and then go, okay, let me go back to it. And now I get to serve my team and it's all going to be fine. Every situation that I can think of where it's been pinched, it's like, look, I'm going to bet on me. I've always bet on me.
Yeah.
And of course there's good people around me. And of course we've got faith that there's a greater hand that's guiding, but it's like, look, at the end of the day, I know that I'm going to do what it takes. Like, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. And so when you have that confidence, is my point, moments like this come, and yes, the heart drops, you sweat a little bit, you kind of freak out for a quick 30 seconds or 30 minutes, whatever. But then you realize, like, we're good. And you just keep right on trucking.
Yeah. No, that's some of the advice I got early on was actually from a friend who was not successful, who struggled to start his own business. And he said to me, he goes, "Why are you worried about being successful as an entrepreneur?" He said, "You were successful as a corporate guy." He said, "You're going to be successful." And I was like, man, because it wasn't just the words, it was like where it came from him. And I've watched him struggle, and he's been in and out of rehab, and I love him to death. It's just, and I thought, wow, that would, sometimes words just hit you. And that was one of those words like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I guess I will be successful, but yeah, so simple.
So profound. All right, I'm going to switch over to our speed round here, Scott. My first question is regarding KPIs. What is the most important KPI, or the way I like to say it is, if you could only pick one thing to track forever and ever, what would it be?
Fantastic question. Red Traction, implemented EOS a year and a half ago. I have a lot of metrics on that. I would have to pick lead flow. So the amount of people that are calling me, because really that's like the big funnel. Once that comes through, things really happen. So that's probably, you can almost judge my revenue based on the amount of people that call me. Yeah.
Spoken like a true marketing guy.
Yeah.
Right. Everything, it dries up real quick if the funnel doesn't stay full. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. What book or resource? You said you're a big reader. So what book would you recommend for businesses trying to get off the ground or grow, scale, anything like that?
I mean, Traction was amazing. That was huge impact for me. I mean, I'm in the later stages, so I'm looking to really target my time and energy. So I just read the 4-Hour Work Week, was fantastic.
Yeah, great book.
Because that really got you to focus too on, if you only had to work 4 hours a week, what would you actually do? What would you look at? Those metrics. Starting off, I read the E-Myth was good. The E-Myth Contractor has one as well. Any kind of self-help book that I just read, The Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall, which is fantastic. I'm doing a lot of that now where I'm trying to build up my story, and I'm being asked to speak and present in different places, which is nice, but I just want to do it well. So she wrote a fantastic book. I loved, and that's, she really focuses in, that's actually probably a good one for new guys, because it has you recount the founder story, how you started your company, that everyone always wants to hear that, which is a little bit here too. So I remember blogging when I first started. I would just write, because I would be, awake at 4 a.m. on the couch, and my kids would come down and be like, "Dad, why are you up?" I'm like, "Oh, I just, my back was sore. I couldn't sleep." And, Mom said I didn't tell him I was up freaking out, because I didn't know what was going on. I was like, what did I do? But I would blog then. I would actually write to them about my journey. So what was really crazy is that full circle. So they're older now. One's in college, or 3 are technically in college. But my middle one called me one day. He's like, "Hey, Dad, can you tell me a little bit what it was like in the early age?" Because he doesn't remember, he was 10 or something. Yeah. So I said, "Hey, go read this blog." And he then wrote a paper based on my blog of starting 5-star, which was pretty cool.
That's cool. I've got a desire to write. There's a lot of things that get in the way and clog me up with that. But what you just said personally, I think was just really, really cool, because I love the idea of building my children. And I know I'm going to partner with my children, not just in life, but in business. And I'm going to partner with my children to raise their children. And I can't wait to do business with my grandkids. Like, I know I'm a little weird on that, but like, this literally fuels me. And what you just said was super impactful. If I just write to them, it fits in with like my life mission anyway. And so that just like took writing just whoop, up on the list for me, which is probably what I needed. That was really, really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure.
What are your thoughts? We talked about your power group, but what are your thoughts real quick on intentionally networking or masterminding? You talked BNI versus power or mastermind, but like, give us just some thoughts there.
Phenomenal. Yeah. Love networking. I grew into it. So it was difficult at first. You got to stand up, give your 30-second. I did present a lot when I was at Nielsen, and so I was comfortable in front of a crowd, but it did take practicing, just forcing myself to do it. I have a theme with the team, and we're going to talk about it is, are you comfortable in the uncomfortable, or are you, you've got to get comfortable in the uncomfortable and push yourself, because that's when you grow. So
Right.
I've been pushing the team to do that lately. But yes, early on, I was not comfortable really standing up, saying, "Hey, it's, your BNI pitch." But I did it. I forced myself to do it, and it's like a muscle. You get stronger and stronger with it. So I started with BNI, went to Rotary, been to chamber stuff. I'm now deep into both Rotary and BNI. Went to a different BNI now, but that network, when COVID hit, they were the first people I called. How we doing? What do you got going on? What marketing's working? They're the people that you can cry on their shoulder. You can get ideas from.
That's
My
right.
power group within 5-star is worth, every penny right now, because we're bouncing new ideas off each other all the time. We're looking at slowing down. So, all right, what are you cutting? What are you doing that you're doing in Cincinnati or Macon or, New Orleans or something that you can apply here that is just great minds. So there's nothing more powerful than the network I built. I'm in a mastermind group too, not the branded mastermind, but I got in with a CEO group that I go to monthly and share with them issues. You can bring up an issue. Hey, I got this employee or whatever. And then they come up with different ideas. But I think it's helped our business grow. It's helped me grow, which has really helped the business grow.
That's right. That's good. Okay. Last question, Scott. Yeah. If you had a chance to whisper in the younger Scott's ear, what would you say?
What age?
Good question. You tell me.
Oh my God. I would say, I quit drinking when I was 19. Those were some hard times because I was in college. So I kind of distanced myself from a lot of high school friends, and I was kind of rebuilding, like, okay, who am I going to be? What am I going to be? I would whisper in my ear, it's going to be all right. You're going to have a great life. You're going to meet a great wife. You're going to have amazing kids. And I probably would have breathed a little better. I just worked. I worked my way through college. I didn't have a great college experience. It was okay, get to work. So I wore a suit and tie every day in college. It was awful because I worked. I had to work. But and those were dark. Those were lonely. It wasn't great. I mean, I met my wife young, which was good. So yeah, I would whisper that it's going to be all right. You're going to have an amazing life.
That's awesome, man. Really appreciate you sharing. Scott, how can the listener find you, whether they're in Atlanta and they need their business or home painted, or maybe they're just a business owner, they want to reach out and pick your brain?
Yeah, give us a call. Scott S at 5starpainting.com is my email, cell phone. I don't know if you give those out here, but yeah, actually I have a new work phone. So 678, I believe it's 283-2717. And yeah, happy to paint your home or business, anybody in the area. That'd be great.
That's perfect. Well, you've been incredible. Thank you for sharing just like super fresh, vulnerable stuff. Made it real for us, man. And we know that we're running alongside someone that doing the same things that we are. So we just really appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable. Blessings to your family, to your marriage, your business, your team, all of that. We just thank you for being here, Scott, so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing literally over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings literally exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.